Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Baumgarten, but I expect you know that. Welcome to this chat on Facebook Live, on paltalk.com, and on YouTube. And joining me today is Tom Stringer, who is head of site selection and incentives at the business advisory firm BDO. He's a friend of ours. This is his second appearance. He was so good the first time. I thought I'd invite him again because he's involved in a very exciting project. You know, right now, across the country, we know that not only is the rest of the economy just sputtering along, so is the automobile industry. It's not working on all cylinders, if you don't mind that little analogy. But in the midst of all this, the pandemic, the shutdown of auto factories, there's actually an automotive company that is actively searching for a factory in the United States, and heading that search is our good friend Tom Stringer. Tom, welcome to the chat.
Hey, Gary, thank you for having us back. We appreciate it.
Glad to have you. So the name of the company is EMC, short for Electra Mechanica. I think I have that right. It's based in Canada.
Correct.
Heretofore, they've done all their production, manufacturing, as I understand it, in China. And at a time when the president is talking about, and not just the president, taking business away from China, returning it to the United States, this Canadian firm is actually doing this.
Yeah, it's a really exciting project to be a part of. First of all, the industry, electric vehicles, is something that we here at BDO have done several significant projects on. And when EMC approached us and showed us the product and what their goals were for the U.S. market, our team, to the person, was extremely excited to be a part of it and to represent them. And I guess they say in life, timing is everything. And to have started this project last year, pre-COVID, along with, we'll just say, the trade tensions starting to come to a settlement with the phase one. This was seemed like a fun project, but boy, oh boy, it's become timely, given the situation that we found ourselves in early 2020, and with the ramifications from the virus and the shutdowns, and the need in the automotive industry to shut down and then transition really over. We're seeing the marketplace kind of demand a shift over to electric and hybrid vehicles. So it's fun to be a part of. But yeah, based and headquartered in Vancouver and currently assembling in China.
I looked at the product. It looks just so hot. We'll talk about that in a minute. Even though you don't really represent the product, you're trying to find them a place to call their home, hang their hat, do their manufacturing. But I got to tell you, it's exciting from what I could see from the materials that I've gotten from the company. But before we get into that, how do you go about the selection? Is there a bidding war going on now between states to have you locate the factory in the various states here in the United States?
Sure, and that's a fair question. There's certainly an examination that's taking place amongst, and we've started this, my gosh, third quarter last year is when we really started looking at the research, understanding what the company needed, and then starting to look at the markets and what was available. We started out with several dozen potential locations, and we're really down to 5 states right now. And we've started, now that the lockdowns have started to end, we started our site visits. So actually getting out to the marketplace, stretching our legs, if you will, and kicking the tires on some buildings and some sites where we could either utilize something that we could renovate or build a greenfield site. So the fun part is it's summer, the weather's nice, things seem to be getting better economy-wise, and we're out in the field with the project. And the receptivity by the state and local elected officials has been extraordinary. Folks have been very welcoming of it. And as you say, the product's pretty neat. It's not a washing machine, with all due respect to washing machines. It's pretty cool. I say it's like driving a fighter jet, but down the street as opposed to at 30,000 feet. So it's been received extremely well in the political and economic development communities. We've got some great offers that have come in on buildings and state participation and for workforce contributions. So we're excited to continue the tour this summer and get out, see the other locations, and make a decision before the end of the year.
So when you talk about the states bidding and trying to get you in there, I imagine tax incentives is one of the ways that they try to lure you to their various states.
Incentives are certainly a part of it. I like to say incentives are one aspect, one piece of the puzzle. Um, the number one priority in site selection is finding the spot where you can find the best service or make the product the best. And that typically is a function of labor. And where's the skill set that I can do X or Y better than anywhere else? Everything else, land, taxes, electric, regulation, really, if you think about it from an accounting perspective, is a cost. Everything else is a cost versus obtaining that skill set. So it's really more so than just incentives. It's a balancing act of cost versus that labor quotient that you're really searching for. And incentives can certainly have a material impact, but it's a way to mitigate a location's costs or potentially other shortfalls that they may have. And there's no perfect location, but we'll certainly be looking at incentives, and they certainly will be helpful to the process.
So Tom Stringer at BDO, who's looking for the site for this next electric car factory that's going to be made here in the United States, and the cars will be manufactured here rather than in China. I'm interested in knowing, when you look at the labor force, typically, I think, and I'm a Detroit boy originally, so of course I've got a little bit of understanding of how the automotive industry works. If you look at skill set in the industrial Midwest, the old Rust Belt, that's where you're going to find people who have been manufacturing cars and maybe could just jump right in and work at it. But also, there are labor costs, and that has to do with the unions. Does that play a factor? Does one outweigh the other? Would you rather go to a state where it's less likely that they're going to form a union, or would you rather go to a state where it's more likely they will, but you already have the skill set in place?
It's an interesting question. I mean, again, it's a balancing act of costs. And to me, my experience with clients, especially in heavy industrial areas like aerospace and automotive, everyone's open to a union as long as the value proposition is there. In some cases, the union is the best position possible based on what's available land-wise, skill set-wise. In other cases, it may not be based on availability. So it's really a balancing act. Again, I go back to, where's the best spot to build it? In some cases, that's going to be in a unionized environment. In some cases, it's not. A lot of states have shifted to right-to-work environments now. Even those in the Midwest have shifted over to right-to-work. But unions can be a real force for good in the country. There's no question about it. But they have to be competitive, and they have to be aggressive with other areas of the country where unions are not as strong. So I don't think anyone makes a decision based on that. I think it's a factor that gets measured against all costs and the relative value proposition that gets churned out in terms of skill sets.
So who are the 5 finalists here? On now down to a short list. Who are we looking at?
Sure, we've got Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, and Colorado.
So we're not talking about Michigan or Ohio. And I'm sure the people in Lordstown, for example, would have wished that you would have them on your list, because they've got that plant sitting there that's been mothballed, and the economy has gone to pot. And I mean, from their perspective, not necessarily from yours, it would be great if you could just go in there and retool.
Yeah, and when we started looking at this project, again, this is going back a year plus from the initial stages. A lot of those facilities were filled, and they weren't on the availability list. And that subsequently came to fruition. But it's very hard once you start a process like this to tack and to include something that's been eliminated for a lot of other reasons, lack of availability being one. And we've screened a ton of other buildings. We've looked at some regulatory environments because we're a new product to the marketplace. Getting regulation in terms of operation on a basic driver's license rather than a motorcycle's license was super important to the company. So factors like that really created a lot of lead time for us. And the thing that I would say about electric vehicles, which is different, and I think folks have to understand that, it's not the same type of machinery and tooling that took place in the traditional automotive industry. It's a lot of that, but it's a lot more aerospace touch labor as well, given the type of product materials, the control systems, the autonomous systems that are being put in. So this is a workforce that really in this country needs to be invented It's not just sitting around, not undeployed. So there's no reason that the industrial Midwest and some of the old auto states can't retrain and retool for this. But the states that have been more successful, I will tell you, in picking up some of this work, California, right, with Tesla. If you look at Texas has picked up some EV projects. Certainly Arizona has been the state that has jumped way out ahead between Nikola, Lucid, Google's Waymo Group. They're inventing the workforce. They've committed dollars to training and to getting folks in terms of how to work with machinery that's highly automated. That's the kind of the difference maker than the old traditional auto lines. And I think some of the Rust Belt states are going to have to retool training and education, certainly working with their union partners to kind of catch up to what some of these younger states have done.
Well, when you mention the states that you mentioned, I think quality of life. Arizona, nice quality of life. Tennessee, nice quality of life. Colorado, nice quality of life. Florida, everybody wants to be in Florida in the winter, maybe not during the summer, but in the winter for sure. And the cost of living in Florida, it's almost a gift, especially if you live in the place where you live, New York or New Jersey, where I live. This New York.
It's an automatic 10% raise.
A lot of our friends are moving to Florida permanently right now because of all the things that are happening here. There's a culmination, a perfect storm that's causing people to move to Florida. I would imagine, and here's the flip side of my last question, that if I were an out-of-work auto worker that had the skills that maybe EMC is looking for, and I live in the Detroit area or I live in Ohio, and the winters, I can tell you from personal experience, can be pretty horrific there. And I was given the opportunity to move to Arizona, Colorado, Tennessee. I might just make the move if you opened up in one of those states.
Yeah, I think people, and there's been a lot of talk about migration in the U.S. really has slowed, where people have really started to stick more so in the past. Well, this was during the we'll just say the upswing of the economy up until February, where migration had really slowed within the United States. After the financial crisis, you saw that change. People moved for jobs. I think after the COVID financial crisis, you are going to see people, especially people in skilled positions like you're describing, move for jobs. And I think that frankly, migration is a good thing. It churns the economy. People, you're selling a house, you're buying a house, there are tenant services to it. People are starting in, somebody's coming in to buy your old house. That activity that's inherent to the United States, more so than any other country, is a huge advantage for us. And quite frankly, when states compete against each other, it's better for business, it's better for their constituents, it keeps everybody sharp. And it's something that often gets criticized, I think, because people can get lost in the incentives and the bidding, even though that's really that's a political attack on the process. The fact that we have a competitive system amongst the states from a business standpoint, that's an inherent advantage. That drives the economy forward pretty aggressively. And so to answer your question directly, I think people are going to have to start moving and are frankly more inclined now, given the economy, to move for jobs, especially jobs that are paying more than what they had, not jobs that are paying less. So you can make more money and you can potentially live in a lower cost environment. Boy, that's a double raise.
So BDO's Tom Stringer, in the beginning of this, I told you that I found that the vehicles that they're manufacturing are pretty freaking hot. And I know there are three either in manufacturing now or in concept. Their biggest vehicle that they're selling is a single seat car that's called the Solo. It's one of these three-wheel electric, not gas-powered vehicles, and it's sharp as hell. And you're right; it looks like you're flying a fighter jet. It's just a really hot-looking car. And what I find really interesting is that the studies have showed that people who are commuting, obviously, you're not going to take this on a family vacation; it's a one-seater, but people who are commuting tend to commute alone. And I see this all the time here in the most densely populated state in the country, New Jersey. The New Jersey Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway are jammed with cars, and there's one person in each car. Imagine if instead of driving their SUV that everybody likes to drive today, or their pickup truck, people were driving one of these little things. It would be fun to drive, and it would ease the congestion.
No question about it. As we got involved with the project and got to learn what the company's goals were, I mean, the individual commuter is certainly a market. And I've been stuck on that Jersey Turnpike trying to get to meetings where it's taken me 4 hours to come from suburban Long Island to get to Trenton, New Jersey. And it's been a mess. And as we look at this, don't even think of all the cars changing. Think of the space that would be available if only 20% changed to an individual transportation like the Solo. Take 20% of the cars off the road and put something smaller in that had a drivetrain dedicated to delivering that one person. Think of the savings in gas, in emissions, the sustainability goals that could be hit. And then what I think is probably more interesting, and we were talking about this during the break, is look at the fleet implications. Think about the cable guy, the pizza guy, the plumber, the guys who show up to your house in these big vans that have nothing in them, or Amazon guys who are doing maybe last mile delivery. The car is a convertible packet that you can snap on, and it eventually looks like a mini station wagon. So the cable guy can come with all his tools, all his materials, and he's not driving that big empty van. Well, take that out through the cable guy, the pizza guy, the plumber, the carpenter, then with some individual transportation, and then maybe look at some municipal options, the meter maids for Center City, business district police forces, downtowns. Now you're talking about more space, opening it up, drastic reductions from a greenhouse gas emission standpoint. You're driving down the cost of fuel dramatically, and everybody's getting there safely. So it really is an interesting concept, and it's one we've had a lot of fun being a part of. And what's neat is to see the political receptivity to it, because we're looking at states that are redder and states that are bluer, and some states that are smack dab purple. So to see kind of consensus from a political standpoint around that vision that, hey, this is something we should support, get a part of, and want to be involved with, it's refreshing. It's fun.
The Solo typically goes for about $15,000. The two-seater vehicle is a lot more expensive than that, unfortunately. And they're also developing a Roadster. I'll tell you, that Solo just looks so cool. When they're manufacturing in the United States, I'm going to have to call you up and say, hook me up. I want to do a review of it, because I'm sure it's fun to drive. And the problem today with these vehicles, and as I said earlier, I'm a Detroit boy, so I know all about hot cars and interesting vehicles. We used to cruise Woodward Avenue from downtown Detroit all the way to Pontiac, Michigan. My buddies and I, that was the thing to do in the Detroit area, and everybody had a unique looking vehicle. Today, when a car pulls up, I can't tell whether it's a Honda, a Hyundai, a Ford, a Jeep, a GMC. You just can't tell because they all look alike. This vehicle, this Solo, does not look like anything else on the road. It's really a hot car or motorcycle or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, an individual transport. Yeah, it's certainly got a unique look. I like to say it's like the cockpit of a fighter jet. And again, we did some tours and driving for some state officials. We were out visiting Arizona, as the company had announced in a press release about 2 weeks ago. And once you drive it, you become hooked. You instantly get it when you drive it, and you feel it amongst traffic. It fits right in, and then it dodges and weaves right out, and it can go places that other cars can't, and enormously fun and frankly pragmatic.
Well, as we were saying before we went to air, when I worked at 1010 Winds in New York City, there are unique issues reporting on the streets of New York because it's so congested and there's no place to park. I don't know how many years off my life I have lost, not covering stories in dangerous neighborhoods necessarily, but just dealing with the traffic and trying to park and all that kind of nonsense. And whether the car is going to be towed when I come back because I had to grab an illegal spot because otherwise I'd miss the story. With this kind of a vehicle, I might still be working at 1010 Winds. Not that I'm unhappy where I'm working now, but I'm just saying that was a factor in my decision to leave. Top Stringer in charge of acquisitions at BDO. You're a great interview as always, and I hope to have you on again soon.
Great. Well, when we get the announcement ready, Gary, we'll come back and we'll share that with you guys.
Thanks a lot, and everybody be well, stay safe, and peace out.